you see fit.
Just to make sure I got these numbers down right, so originally, the use of the fund balance as recommended by the select board was gonna be $634,475.
I think it was 633, 475.
Okay, thank you.
That was our recommendation.
Our recommendation was 628,000.
28, 475. Yep,
475.
yep.
And you're saying, so and now the new recommendation is an even 668,000.
That's correct. And that should match our reduction of the $5,000 to match the solid waste and the increase in the tax estimate, the, county tax estimation that came in, or value that came in, I should say.
Okay.
What would the mill rate change if we didn't change the fund balance? Did you guys determine that?
We did not determine that.
Is there a way to determine that this evening?
Well, I have,
Yeah, if you got the answer,
I
take
have
the floor.
a part of an answer.
Okay.
So in the meantime, while this is going on, we learned that the school budget's been out actually for a while, and it's significantly more than was estimated. So what I did was, I put the real numbers in, what we believe to be the real numbers for the county and the school.
So what's the school estimating to be?
The school is saying they're having a 6.5% increase.
Ouch. So what's their number, do you know?
That number is $6,087,918.
Like you said again, 6 million?
$6,087,918. Keep in mind though, last year, I think they had a 4.9% increase at the school, general announced, and our portion of that was 5-something. So our portion of this may be more, maybe less than the 6.5 they've announced, we don't know for sure, I guess. I don't know how, when we find that out exactly, but it's close enough for. So what I did was, I put those real numbers in, and I took on the summary worksheet that Mark put together, I took education out because typically we don't deal with education in our budget. The town, on the town floor, they look at everything but education as far as increases and so forth. So I took education out, and which made the variance to budget 12.5%. This is, I'm looking at the summary spreadsheet, total funding requirements. The funding requirements variance to budget is 12.5%. And I think I've done this right. The variance to actual is 15%. This is for 23-24. This is without the school. The school has an overweight influence on the total budget.
Can you repeat those numbers again? Sorry.
So the 23-24, with this education out,
Right.
the 23-24 variance to budget is 12.5%, and the variance to actual is 15%. So, but I gotta say, part of the influence on the actual was there was $100,000 that the road department, the public works didn't spend on roads that got put back in this year, and that would have reduced that 15% to whatever, 13%, or I don't know what it is, 13.5, something. So anyway, it's going up a lot. So then I added it back in. I added education back in to the total requirements, and there was an 8.3% change in funding requirements. Increase. And if you left the 633 in there that the select board had previously voted on, that would have brought the property tax levy up to $8,209,000, which was a 2.3% over last year, 2.3% increase over last year. And the mill rate would go up 2.3%. So it was 21.35 mill rate last year. If we left it with the numbers I just referred to, it would be 21.833.
And nobody has a vote with county, right? They just willy-nilly make up their number and pass it along. Okay.
Well, kind of for future reference, we do elect county commissioners by district. So there may be somebody that Durham may be in somebody's district. So-
Right,
so
but we
going
don't
down
get
the
to vote
road-
on the budget, we just get to vote on the representatives.
Right, yeah.
Has the select board taken up any discussion of long-term use of our fund balance? There's been a lot of discussion of trying to change to a fiscal year and not a calendar year.
Yeah, we did discuss the fiscal year quickly with Jerry, and, you know, he had made the recommendation that we wait until the reevaluation is done. And so we're trying to get that done first and then move to a fiscal year. Otherwise, it's somewhat of a, I'll use the word moving target. You know, we'd rather have the reevaluation done first and then move is what what the recommendation was. And I believe we pretty much on board with that. So the only other long-term item that will more than likely be on the radar coming up is expanding the town hall and looking at the footprint of office space for the employees. So, you know, I say the town hall, it could be something different than that, but that would, to me, be the largest funding need in, say, the next couple years that we would have to probably look at seriously and possibly use some of the fund balance for that to offset the cost for the taxpayers. You know, there was a plan in, 2007 to do that, and that got, you know, mothballed. It didn't move any forward at all, so probably be putting a committee together and dusting off those plans to start with and see if that meets the needs, and if it does, then we'd be looking next year to, you know, maybe fund something from there. And that's the only thing right now that we have that we'd consider at this point. There's nothing else emergent that we're aware of.
Bill, I'll make a motion to use $668,000 from the fund balance to help reduce the tax impact.
Is there a second?
Second?
So it's been, the motion was made by Alan and seconded by John to agree with the select board's recommendation to use $668,000 from the fund balance to offset the 2024 budget. Discussion.
Question.
Yes.
So going, excuse me, going back to the county taxes, it was estimated at 3%.
Correct.
How was that determined? Because it was more than the year before.
We didn't have the actual number.
Right.
You know, we.
Just
that-
estimated.
That's what the estimation was 3% going into this budget cycle.
And we have no clue. Nothing was given as to how it went from 3% to 9.6.
We do not know. That would be a question for the representative, so we don't know any background information on what drove that number to that increase. We'd be guessing at this point.
Who's our representative? Find out. Okay.
3% was the number Jerry picked.
Well, right,
That was
and-
kind of,
Right.
And that's what I was asking is, how did that come about? And that was just, it sounds
That-
like
yeah,
it
that
was just
was-
an estimation,
That was
a number.
There was a number that was estimated.
was
I
thrown
think
out
it was
there.
based on historical,
Yeah,
you know, what they've historically have gone up, that sort of thing. I don't think it was truly a willy-nilly estimate.
right,
I
I
think
mean,
it was
yeah,
a
yeah. Who would've
an
gone back?
educated guesstimate,
Has it ever been this high before? Do you,
not that I recall.
no?
I think they typically use 3% when figuring out our budget.
Right.
But
So did anyone like even question it?
Question one.
You can't.
Question why the bill was so high, wouldn't, I mean, if you got the bill at home and it was that much off, wouldn't you make a phone call and say, holy crap?
What went into
What's
it,
going on?
what went into that,
Yeah.
but nobody, we didn't.
I'm
Did our
thinking,
40-hour patrol get put into that?
No.
Okay.
The dream home.
You know somebody's gonna ask, so I just
Oh, yeah.
figured I'd
No.
let you know ahead of
That's-
time.
That's not there.
Further discussion?
I guess I have a problem just continuously saying, let's just take it out of the fund balance, because I think we're now holding people accountable when that happens. It's kind of like, yeah, we went over, yep, we'll do that. I don't know. I feel like this year, in particular, we're not digging deep enough. It's all been put out on the table and things are combined and, I don't know. I just have a hard time doing it. It's the easy way, and I'm a taxpayer. I want my bill not to go up, but are we being short-sighted in the long run? I don't know.
I think I agree with you on that, and there's a lot of unknowns in this budget because of department changes, and there are different numbers than we saw last year, so comparisons were difficult, and we may come out with a surplus this year, which I think is what Mark is suggesting, to replenish the fund balance, but I don't think we know for sure, and I'd feel more comfortable.
Yes, but there was a lot of roundup. Everything was rounded up. I mean, if the estimate was 6,000, he rounded to
Yeah,
10.
yeah, I agree.
If he had an estimate of 12, he rounded it to 15. And it wasn't hundreds of dollars. He rounded everything up thousands to every single item. And then, we didn't have anything to say over it, but a 10% raise on top of everything else. I mean, I don't think anybody's been fiscally responsible on any of this. And I hear a lot of talk about, the budget committee. People really rely on us to kind of dig and probe and help. And I feel like, basically being new to it. I mean, I've sat in a lot in the past, and I've seen a lot, and we've really dug into a lot, and Jane's been finding, like, she found a telephone that's been just sitting there at the
Union Church.
at one of the places, and Runaround Pond, they found some other wasted money, and everybody was, but this year, I'm kind of surprised that there's, it's just overall, and we got a match, and that's really been emphasized, to match, and we just kind of go, and since I didn't ask some questions properly, it goes. So, I don't know, I'm feeling the same way she is. I don't feel like we have been really digging into anything or holding anybody accountable.
Well, I think some of us gave the towns some grace and some trust because we were rearranging how things, as Neil said, how things were posted and how things were described. Personally, though, without details, I don't feel like I want to give that grace to the county. And I think the only way to bring it to the townspeople attention is by us not matching. So that it makes the townspeople go, who, what, where, when, how, why. And,
Not mention what, the county?
what's
No,
that?
The select board,
Oh,
not matching the select boards.
Not matching the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a choice when it comes to the county, but,
right.
and yes, I understand that we have a surplus in our fund balance, but I'm now leaning towards Milt, cause this is our second or third meeting that we've met just to change the fund balance because, we got new money to spend, so okay, we'll just cover it with the fund balance, and I think at some point in time, we need to have a game plan for that fund balance and know what our future is and how we plan on using it, because there is a lot of big ticket items coming to the people, and if you're gonna go from a calendar year to a fiscal year, me personally, I would love to use that fund balance to help out the townspeople do that without feeling it in their pocketbook within a 1-year schedule. I think that's a better gift than allowing everybody to just constantly increase their budget because we have extra funds.
So being new to this board, or to this committee, how do we get a surplus in the fund balance? How does that happen?
We overestimated what things would cost. And because of us budgeting what something is gonna cost, we then have to determine how much money we need to take in. And the money we need to take in is from the property taxes. And so when things don't cost as much, but you still charged everybody that price, you end up with extra money in the coffers.
So it sounds like what Donna was talking about, that we overestimate,
Yes.
and that's where we get the money. And so are we thinking, because that's an overestimation, it's a savings account that, and because it's there as extra surplus, we can just spend it?
I think
Well, it's not just surplus, it's.
Well, I mean, I'm
it's-
using that
there's-
word.
There's two parts to it, that's what I look at, and I think Mark would agree. We need a $2 million buffer, approximately, to run the town. You need $2 million in cash that we always have to have, which gives us 1.7 to use. We're gonna use $600,000 of it this year, which leaves us $1 million. And maybe at the end of the year, we're gonna have 1.1 million, I don't know, we don't know yet, we'll have to wait and see. But from my perspective on the taxing thing is, we've probably been taxing it about what we should have been taxing because of the capital money that we're spending, or now saving for, that we weren't saving for in previous years. So, the money that we're being taxed at now is going to capital, that we were previously taxed at, is going to pay for capital stuff. And we'll need, in 2 or 3 years, if we do this again, we're gonna start running out of that. So the taxes are gonna have to go up to match that.
Right.
So, I don't think we know the answers yet. So, I don't know, but I agree, I don't wanna match this like board, I wanna.
So, one more question. So the buffer that you're talking about, is that because we're not on is it a calendar year?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year?
Every town has to have a buffer.
Oh, well, okay, I was just trying to understand, because we don't know what school is until in June, and because we're not in the fiscal year, so that's not why we
I've
need that
learned it to
buffer.
be that we need a slightly larger buffer, because there's big chunks of our budget that don't become known until after we've created the budget. So that's kind of, I've interpreted that, yes. And because tax bills, even though we vote on our budget in April, we have to wait for everybody else's budget to come in. So the tax bills don't go out until
August.
July and aren't due till
July.
August. So
And then if
we
they-
have to run the town for 8 months off of savings. So that to me is, I've interpreted one of the reasons why we need a bigger buffer. I think if we were on a fiscal year, we wouldn't need as deep or as big of a buffer, because
I don't think
we could
that
be
is-
asking people to pay sooner, but I could be wrong there. That's just my hope and assumption.
So I want to acknowledge, oh,
No, go ahead, finish. What are you doing?
I mean, I just get my thought. But I want to acknowledge you, thank you for, so I don't have to get on, restate my soapbox speech from the previous 2 meetings. And I'm in agreement with Jill. I mean, so the select board's strategy was to try, because we had a surplus of more than we anticipated in the fund balance. So my understanding was the select board wanted to flat fund this year because we've already taxed money, so we're just using previous monies that were taxed that we're to hold the line. And I think, and we tried our best to do that. But I agree with Jill, I don't believe we need to cover the 9%. To me, that's an easy explanation to the town of why their taxes are going up. We did our best to, we may have overtaxed, the town obviously did everything with the best interests of the residents in mind, but we raised more money than we needed to. We did our best to come in at a zero tax, but it's not our role to cover for the county, that 9%, and nor is it to cover for the school. So if the taxes are gonna go up this year, which I said on my soapbox that it's unrealistic to think that taxes wouldn't go up, at least we can say that we did our part to hold the municipal line flat. What's causing your taxes to go up is your county and your school. And I don't think we should be covering that. I think I saw, so there was Joe, then John, and then Neil.
No, I was gonna just indicate the same thing you just said, Milt, is that, the idea that the select board had was to flat fund it, so we wouldn't see an increase this year. It is the people's money, but the town's folks' money that we're holding, and it is in excess of where we thought we actually were. So using some of their own money to, everybody's money to actually cover that, the select board felt comfortable in doing so. So it was county taxes, we really don't have any say over it. So increasing it didn't seem too far-fetched with the way we've been moving here. But I do agree that, later on, our taxes will go up in the next couple of years. It's gonna happen. This was just one more year reprieve before that occurred, is what we're looking at.
John?
I was gonna say a couple of things. I think another 40, and I agree, to some extent about not bailing out, and we're not really bailing out the county, we're bailing out our taxpayers. And, with that 44,000, so I'm still supportive of doing that, but it's not all just that we overtaxed the residents. We took in, $270,000 more in revenue than we had budgeted. So, maybe shame on us for not having known that or budgeted, but we did, so it wasn't all just tax money that was coming in, so it was over $250,000 in that regard. And I'll echo, I think Jill or somebody else, I think, we're talking about what else do we wanna look at in the coming year. I think setting, what do we want for the reserve fund, safety fund, general fund to be? Is it 2 million, is it 1.7, is it 3 million? Because if we don't think we're really gonna use $3 million, then we probably ought to do things to help the taxpayers in terms of buying stuff going forward or whatever. I don't think we should just set on $3 million when, standard practices says 17 to 18% of your budget should be in the reserves, which is like 1.7, 1.8. So 2 is well above what we need. So that's just something we should take a look at and decide, and not have to have, next year we can say, we had 3 million, we think 2 million is enough, so let's put another $200,000. And oh, by the way, all we're doing is moving it from one reserve to another. We keep talking about having spent that money, but all we've done is change the bank account that it's sitting in at this point, so.
Neil?
I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, I forgot actually about the revenue side of that question, Phyllis, because it has been higher every year than we anticipated. And it's gonna be this year as well, because they used last year's revenue.
I thought he increased it by a percentage. I thought Mark increased it by a percentage.
Well, the valuation is the same, 376. It's gonna be more.
Yeah, well,
And
It is an increase of 12% this year, because whatever the intergovernmental line covers, that's up almost 23%. The rest
Right.
are, a couple of them went down on permits and fees, other revenues, whatever they may be. But, I agree with Neil, we've got a whole bunch of houses that are, we can complain about them, but a whole bunch of houses that are coming online to start paying taxes. We approved a subdivision last year, 13 lots, that's $650,000 of assessed value that is coming online this year.
per house.
What's that per lot? It's 50,000, they assess it at 50,000 a lot.
Oh.
Right now, it's probably,
You thought it was
you know,
each
gonna pay like
inch.
$1,000 in taxes.
And the other part of, there's gonna be a tax increase this year unless, I don't know how Jerry missed this, but the school budget's been out for a while. And there's
I don't think he was saying there wouldn't be a tax increase, I think he was saying that he didn't want there to be a municipal
Municipal.
tax increase.
oh, really, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
I thought, anyway, there's $120,000 increase in school funding over what was in the budget.
Because
So that's
the-
gonna increase the bill rate.
The whole levy conversation, does that take into account the school budget?
Well, yeah, that was, it was in there.
Okay, I'm just clarifying out loud.
Yeah, the summary sheet that they used to calculate the mill rate included the school budget.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting how, normally when we, in the past, when we have presented things to the townspeople, there's been discrepancies between the select board and the budget committee. And whenever we do that, a lot of times the people will look at the budget committee and say, well, we're gonna go with the budget committee because it reduces our taxes. Now, this particular item that we're talking about, you're looking at the budget committee with if we stay with our original motion, you're looking at the budget committee with a lower amount than the select board, and it's gonna increase your taxes. And that's gonna be an interesting argument. I understand where it's coming from. I know the accounting that we've done this year, I think we've kind of stabilized the accounting practice. And we don't have a lot of experience under our belt with the current accounting practice.
We're not saving anybody any taxes, we're just delaying the tax.
That's right.
Correct.
The spending's not changing.
Right,
It's
and that's
just
what
the
I'm a little
spending is-
concerned about, is, yes, there has been an increase in the municipal spending. And now we've got a almost 7% increase in the county spending. And kinda to Neil's point, or Milton's point, we could have, a 0 change in the mill rate this year. But if we don't continue to support the bad habit every year, at some point, we're gonna see all of a sudden, we're gonna feel a 10% increase from the county tax and a 8% increase from the town tax, that we gotta figure out how we're not all of a sudden having a jump in taxes to pay it if we don't have the funds to transfer.
But there's certain things, like right now, the credit union stuff is 6 months CD, they're paying 4% on.
Yeah, and the town manager is looking into that.
He should have looked into it. It's 6 months, go get the money. Look how much money is being wasted. We
He
could
may
have
have
$100 and
already.
something thousand dollars.
We may have already, I
That could have
don't,
gone against a lot of this,
So-
or could have gone against the CIP or something. That's been out there for months now. But
Well, technically, that's the select board's issue.
right.
They're the ones responsible to invest. It's right in the statute.
Correct, but it's our responsibility to be scrutinizing the,
Well, to some degree. We have limited, we just talk, right? We just recommend.
We just make recommendations, and we only do it after we get, our recommendations are based on the select boards. We don't precede anything.
Call for the motion.
I have to have a second to do that. It's been moved by Alan and seconded by John to call the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
So we're voting for the
To
higher
vote.
amount?
We're
No, we're voting to
vote.
vote.
Oh, we can vote.
All right, that passed.
What's the vote?
So the motion on the floor is to match the select board's recommendation of using $668,000 from the fund balance to offset the 2024 budget. All those in favor of the motion?
Vote for your motion?
I'll be
We
looking
want to go home.
And the motion fails.
What if we all abstain? You gotta ask for no's. You're
Oh.
assuming we're gonna say
Okay,
no.
all those,
I could be abstaining.
Right.
okay, all those opposed? So there's no abstain, it failed
Mr.
one,
Chair, I
1
don't
to
think
7.
There's nothing else that we need to vote on financially, because we've already voted on it. Just that we would be staying with our original motion there.
Correct. And we don't have warrant articles to make those official, so.
All right, so moving on to the agenda. That was a quick meeting. No,
Mr. Chair, do you have an ETA, or shall I use the bay for our meeting?
you can use your office if you'd like.
I have a few suggestions, but okay, do you have an ETA?
I don't.
Use your parking space.
What's on our agenda? I didn't
We
see
have
an
two more
agenda
items
sent
to
out.
discuss. Two more items. One, a review of
There's a
our
big set.
bylaws and a possible recommendation to the select board regarding a warrant
I think it was
article.
a deadline, chief.
When's your meeting?
Officers meeting at 7, but we can use the bay. We're just double billed here, that's all.
We need to make some.
We're,
We apologize.
no, look,
We'll do our
Milt
best to
gave
get
me his
done
word,
soon.
but it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We'll make do.
Okay.
No
Thank
days
you.
off, Neil, no
Thank
days
you.
off.
I'd
Thank
say
you.
we'd spend money to get you something, but we're the budget committee,
Yeah, I
so.
wouldn't even ask.
Is it warm in there? I mean, we want to make sure it's warm in there.
I put it on the record, I did call the chief at 11:30 this morning to let him know that there were additional items on the agenda, and I anticipated our meeting going beyond 30 minutes.
No, I think.
Number two, when this meeting was set, both the town manager and myself checked the fire department calendar, and there was nothing scheduled for this room for this evening.
You're exonerated.
Yeah, right. It's on the record.
For the record. All right, so the second agenda item was, it was requested that we review our bylaws. In the email that Neil sent out was, he feels that we should consider revising them to restate on what we are voting. It says currently, the bylaws say that we're voting on each warrant article, but we haven't had warrant article for the last couple of years. And so, although he feels maybe we don't necessarily need to change our bylaws this evening, that perhaps the discussion could get started.
Do you have a
Yep,
copy of said
There's
bylaws?
one area that under, if I may, under section 2, under organization, there's the second paragraph down. Talks about the first meeting annually shall
Do
be,
you need copies of the bylaws?
No, I
for
sent
people?
them out to there's a link. I sent out a link.
shall be called by the chair of the budget committee, and as you read down through that, it says posted a notice of the meeting at the town office, and I think we should add, and town website.
Where's the link? I'm trying to find this link, I apologize for
If you go to the
disrupting.
town's website,
That's not done on the website?
It is, but that's not, and not.
Oh, right here?
Okay.
Yes,
All right, my
Deal with
apologies.
more details of it. Because you have a new chair coming in, what am I supposed to do?
Alan, I'm sorry, I did not hear what
I
you
was
said.
distracting, I
It's
apologize.
section 2.
In the second paragraph,
Section 2, second paragraph, when it talks about the first meeting, that the chair or vice chair shall, as you read down through that first sentence, post a notice of the meeting at the town office, and I recommend putting and the town website. I know it's being done, but it's not in our, if we get a new chair, a new chairperson, or new individuals coming on board, they would have something to follow that is more detailed. And the other area, when we look under responsibilities, when we talk about the first paragraph, and I'm concerned that, certainly concerned that we haven't had warrant articles, and I see no reason why we shouldn't have them. But since we haven't, and make recommendations regarding each warrant item, I guess, if we're okay with not having the articles, I'm not.
No.
And I see no reason not to have them, because you could, as far as I'm concerned, you could basically take the previous year and present that to the budget committee, because a lot of those articles are standard. So, you know, that's up to the select board to look at something like that, but if we're looking at our bylaws, we can only work on what is presented to us. Even this year, I thought it was kind of difficult looking at, we were looking at individual departments, but what's the warrant article going to say? So,
sure they can get it done in time for us to.
Sure you can. You can
They
do-
have
you can
for
do a
several
draft- You can do
years.
a draft one and you can revise it as you progress through meetings. There's no reason why not.
You have draft articles, don't you?
Hmm?
You have draft articles. We have draft articles now, I think.
There's a
No.
lot of things when we.
Because
used
we
to
asked for
do-
the draft articles
Right.
for tonight
Right.
and were declined, so we
Yeah.
don't have them.
Well, no, but they're out there for us to have them, I'm assuming.
I don't know where they are. I haven't seen them. So, and so I'm recommending changing that, the warrant article to warrant item. If we're gonna continue the practice that we had this year.
Change the word articles to items.
Yeah.
Does that mean we no longer get the warrant article?
Correct. So, so your thought, Neil, that, I should make a note that prior to, or to initiate that, the first time the budget committee meets for review of the 2025 budget, we probably should start with a review and recommended changes of our bylaws.
Yeah, something simple, because I just the way I'm wired, we're not doing what it says, and we should come close to what it says.
And I'll throw another idea out. Should we meet between now and then to talk about things like advice, and I know it's a select board's decision, but should we be putting together recommendations for things like what's the minimum general fund balance that we want to have? And are there other things that we want to recommend to the select board ahead of, because once we get into the budget, it's, you know, that's what we think about, and there's, you know, so is it worth being an advisory position, which means additional meetings, but there may be other topics that we want to discuss.
Well, one of our responsibilities is to review the auditor's report when it comes out. Usually, a good auditor is going to tell you whether you're in a challenging position as to what is in your fund balance. And that alone, by us reviewing that, we would answer that question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it does.
Well,
Because, I mean, if we have $3 million, they're gonna say you're in a hell of a good position, but do we need $3 million?
Well, that's what they're gonna, they should say that. They have in the past, they've told us what our balance is, and they're saying to be fiscally responsible, this is what your balance should be. And, based on the auditor reports that I've seen in the past, and I know there's been some that have been scary.
Right.
And we could run into problems with monies prior to the taxes being issued.
We've had that in the past, haven't we?
Well, we've issued TANs, tax anticipation notes.
Mhm.
And it's just, that's because of a cash flow issue.
When does this auditor's report come out?
Depends on how
I don't
quickly.
know.
It's usually the
I think
fall.
once the books are closed.
Yeah, she just started, last week.
Theoretically, we're supposed to have all of our ducks in a row, so that she, pretty much all she has to do now is look at the paper, make a checkbox, and she, you know, make a report, and she's done. Whereas in past years, they've had months and months and months of needing to find the paperwork. So my assumption is, typically I think the latest I've heard we've gotten it is December, or like the fall, but I thought she said, or Mark said that if all the paperwork is done properly ahead of time, it should just be a matter of like 6 to 8 weeks type of thing from when they
Should
start,
have it prior to the town meeting.
so.
Did this committee meet, look at the auditor's report, the last auditor's report?
Say that again?
Did this committee see the auditor's report, the last auditor's?
We were invited to the meeting, it was held here in December, so.
Did I-
It wasn't this committee, because this committee didn't, oh no.
But-
We were invited, wasn't it this December, or was that last year?
Last year.
Oh, my apologies.
Well, didn't it seem to me that Mark gave a
Mark?
presentation on
Yeah,
it,
Mark gave a
which
presentation.
was like last
Like an
fall, I
auditor's.
was gonna say, but in December. So we did get inputs.
Oh, so he was like, that was like the auditor
Well,
report,
yeah,
right?
I don't know.
But I think a lot of his input was proper accounting practices.
Right,
He really wasn't doing an audit, well, he kind of was, but it wasn't a formal report. He will get a formal one though, whether it comes from him or whomever.
The auditor's report was presented February 6, 2023, at a select board meeting, I believe, which started a whole bunch of conversations. And that was the last one. When we're gonna do the next one, I don't know. I would imagine it should be easier this year than it was in the past.
Right.
So,
It should be, yes. I'm just looking to see if she gave me a schedule.
And why will it be easier? Is it because we,
Because Mark knows what he's doing,
okay.
so we've been told.
I think he does.
No, I'm just saying, if everything goes the way we've been told it should be going, then there should be an easy auditor's report.
So like all the codes that go into Trio and all of
Yeah.
that stuff that you're
Yeah.
talking about?
right.
Yeah,
But that's why there's been all that shifting around on our reports of,
right,
What's
not
in
really
what
being able to
line,
compare apples to
which is
apples.
confusing.
But if we get it in the summer, does it really matter? For-
Well, it gives you some, it gives you guidelines to look for the rest of the year that you can really look at and be, I guess, have more confidence in the numbers that you're presenting to the budget committee next fall.
Yeah, I was thinking like September, which is 3 or 4 months ahead of what we're doing. I mean, that doesn't matter, if we think it is sooner, good.
Right.
Oh, as far as scheduling a next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if we get that review in the fall,
I don't know, this room is usually pretty cold, I think August is a good time. You cool off.
I guess if somebody ran off with all our money, we didn't know, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Did you say that live?
No, my mic's not working.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to determine is if, it sounds like there's been a couple of ideas for consideration to amend this committee's bylaws. When would be an appropriate time to do that? Prior to next year's budget review? Maybe perhaps time it for some time after the release of the auditor's report so that the meeting would have 2 items on its agenda, one a review of the auditor's report, and then 2 to update our bylaws.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
Okay, so are we thinking the month of September?
Well, we don't know when the audit report's coming out.
Oh,
How about within 90 days of the audit report coming out? Make it sound
60.
official.
60.
Yeah,
Everything's 90.
that's why we should make it 60.
60 days, 90 days?
30?
Within 37 minutes of it coming out. All right,
I'll say 60 to 90 days.
you're just gonna make that decision for us, are you?
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works.
All right, is that enough, enough
Great.
discussion on it? All right, and the third item, I'm gonna let you discuss the item 3 on the, on the agenda, which was recommending an additional warrant article to the select board.
Yeah, and I don't mean this year necessarily, but it seems like every other meeting, I have been watching the meetings, believe it or not. It's, I don't know why, but
It's
it
entertainment, isn't it?
is. And it seems like every other meeting, there's a what can we spend type of question comes up, and so I thought there should be some foundation information for us on what they can do for spending. And there's been this issue of being able to pay bills that haven't been properly budgeted and funded. And we have, I don't know what it is, Joe, $10,000 you deal with, or
Yeah,
something like that. That has to be paid. And so there's a $16,000 emergency fund, which nobody can touch.
I thought we could, as long as the select board and the budget committee got together. That's how it was presented to us.
That was a warrant article, and warrant articles expire at the end of the year.
We'd have to have a warrant every year.
After being our budget and the warrant every year. So my thing would be to do an ordinance, but an annual warrant article would be okay too. But I wanna give them the authority to spend money where they have to spend it. I don't want discretion in the language, I want, if they have to spend the money, let them spend the money. I don't know what the right language is, but,
Cause one man's definition of have to is another woman's definition.
well, the contract would be one reason, the trash thing is a contract.
Right.
They gotta pay it,
Right,
and that was a bugaboo for them a few months ago. And what was the tax thing? they had?
Workers' comp.
Workers' comp,
That's something you have to
that's when
do.
they gotta spend that.
Yeah. And
So
that's
I just
based on
I
the
wanna
rate.
give them the authority to spend money they have to, if that's all I have to say about it.
But what would happen, question, if we overspent, I mean, we wouldn't wanna make that the rule, but if we needed to overspend because it was an emergency, I don't know what's happened to my voice, came up and we would overspend, and then that would be presented at the next year. I mean, not, again, that shouldn't be the plan to overspend, but if we had to, why couldn't we?
That does happen, yeah.
yeah, I thought that was my understanding, they're writing the check, it's just they're bringing it up at the next town meeting. So you're saying you don't want it brought up at the next town meeting to let the townspeople know?
I don't think she would have to, it's just an article on the warrant that we don't need. It's gonna happen anyway.
Oh, so either way.
But there are other overspenditures, I think the chief overspent some money a couple of years ago that was, I'm not talking about that kind of overspending, I'm talking about a bill that has to be paid, you know, legally. Like solid waste. And that would take some of the pain out of the budgeting process, at least a little bit. And Mark mentioned, there's several ways you can approach this. He mentioned some of the last select board meeting, which I think got set aside because nobody thought they'd pass. But I think we should give the select board some discretion. I don't wanna use that word. We should give them the ability to spend money that has to be spent.
Did you say in your email though, you wanted to dissolve the emergency reserve fund?
It's not, nobody can touch it. Legally, nobody can touch it right now. And it's not gonna change this year. I
So
don't
you
think.
put that where to the
I just moved back into the.
balance, fund balance?
unassigned fund.
Where did that money come from?
We established it,
Oh,
and the first year we established it, or the second year, we put money into it and said the select board and budget committee could vote to use it. But it expired and never been talked about again.
Well, it's one of those things that the select board could create their own article for the upcoming town meeting, and they could move that into the unassigned fund.
Yeah.
So if you just said that that went away, so didn't that, because it's a reserve fund, it didn't go back to the general fund?
Right,
Right.
emergency reserve, yeah.
I think there was a problem with defining what we were to use that for too, same
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right?
probably was.
Why was that money put aside? And nobody necessarily had the answer right on the tip of their tongue to backfill that history.
At the time, I think the town meeting said if the select board's gonna be involved and the budget committee's gonna be involved, and they'll be honest about it or whatever.
Right, the examples that were given was like if there's a hole in the roof and it needs to be patched, it wasn't already on the budget, but that's been, other things since Mark's come, not Mark, but Jerry's come on board, it sounds like you guys can spend money if something like that happens, you
For-
don't need
for-
anybody's permission.
For capital, we
Yeah.
could, we can fix something in that case and we can spend up to, I believe, $10,000, $999,000 with,
I don't know where you get that number, Joe, but that's bogus. You can spend, as long as money in the capital reserve fund, you can spend on anything you want, as long as it's spent for the right purpose. So there's capital equipment and capital buildings, whatever was in my email. And they can spend it. If the roof blows off, they can fix it.
And that's the intent of what we're putting money into the fire reserve and the public works reserve, which is,
Yeah.
when we do that, then the call to actually spend it would be on the hands of the select board. It would not have to go to, it could, but it doesn't have to go to the town meeting.
and I think that's where Mark was heading to do like 5%, but, be able to spend up to 5% of each budget line, which would give you latitude and the extra funds to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking to the capital reserve.
Right, and the
You guys
capital,
could
right.
Find a number.
We could, yeah. but that helps that case, is really what my point is, yes.
But the MRS Title 30A, Chapter 223, Municipals Finances, Subchapter 7, Reserve Fund, SS 5802, that you put in your email, says that municipal officers, other trustees of the reserve fund.
Right.
So that would also include the emergency reserve fund, so we wouldn't need an article.
It's not a capital fund,
It doesn't say capital, it says of the reserve fund.
the capital reserve fund,
No, it says of the reserve fund.
no, it's capital.
In someplace else it says capital.
The examples that you gave were capital. But
Well, they're looking, I think, look, what Neil's recommending is that we make a recommendation to the select board that they formalize that process.
Yeah.
It's not our call.
no, I understand that. I'm just wondering if the process has already been formalized based on this municipal ruling.
So the law says reserve funds, a municipality may establish a reserve fund consisting of one or more accounts. One reserve fund, one or more accounts, by appropriating money and putting it in the fund. Capital improvement account, capital equipment account, credit reserve account, which you don't wanna get into, and a sinking fund, which is to pay bonds. So there's really just two, we have them.
Okay.
And we have more than one account, so we have a capital improvement account and a capital equipment account. So if something blows up, they can spend capital money to fix it. They don't need our permission to do it, because they're trustees, as the law says.
What you're talking about is to pay the sanitary waste overrun
A bill.
or.
Something they have to by law, yeah.
Or by
They should-
contractual agreement,
Yeah,
previously approved contractual agreements. Yeah, all right.
so,
I make a motion to do what Neil's saying.
What did you say?
Get the verbiage.
If I second it, will you actually vote?
so Joe's here, he's heard our story. We can send, I put an email together and you can bless it, and we all say we agree, we can send it to Joe or to Jerry and Joe, and they can do what they want. All we do is recommend.
I mean, it doesn't mean that all of us individually will approve it in the end, but
Right.
I think, I mean,
Rich George was concerned that they did something like this before and it got blown off, but the budget committee wasn't behind it. I don't think this is radical, this is.
No, no.
I think it's more the lack of understanding
Could be.
and perhaps the lack of faith of those people running our town at the time that things are presented is how people react.
Mean trust.
So,
Okay.
Okay, any other business? Got the motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everybody. Meeting for Saturday.